For Human Gay. And from the lycanthropy system, I am a prosecutor. I am one of Vince's alters. I guess you could call me. Um, and today is going to be all about us. I guess, or all about DID in general. And since I'm so organized, I have a little notepad with questions on it. Question is, what is DID? Okay, so DID is I'm very itchy right now. DID is it stands for dissociative identity disorder. It's a disorder that is caused by child trauma that becomes a coping mechanism into developing separate identities for different coping mechanisms. I guess you could say. I'm not very good at explaining it. Besides, if I'm explaining it from my experience, but besides it being it's basically a coping mechanism developed from child trauma. That's like the simplest way I can put it. Um, Second question is, are there alters that come out once or twice and never again? Yes, there's an alter that still lives on the inside in the inside world. His name is Perseus. He is supposed to be a god of some sort, or not a god, a demigod of some sort, and um, he's from the he's from the same place as Grover, one of the altars in our system, who is a satyr. But he wanted to test out what it was like to come out, and he came out, and he didn't like it, so he stayed in. It's that simple. Like they kind of have like control over whether or not they want to. Um, the third question is, do they have names? Of course they have names. They're like their whole identities. Like they require names for a whole identity. They kind of develop them by themselves. Um, that's we kind of just know our names when we show up. I guess you could say when we come forth. That was so like 1900s. We kind of like yeah, we just basically come with like when we show up, we come with names that we just know, and it's really complicated to explain because it's like, oh, doesn't someone give you a name? No, it's more of we give ourselves names after we feel like we are present. Um, the fourth question is, did I actually get medically diagnosed? Because if not, that is messed up. Um, I don't get what you mean by the messed up part. Like, is it messed up for me to say that I have DID and not be made medically diagnosed? Because I am. I had diagnosed twice. I had diagnosed last year in June, and then I diagnosed this year in March. But there was by two different therapists. Well, a therapist and a psychologist. Um, and the messed up part, I don't know what to think about that because I'm not really hiding anything. This shirt is really wrinkled and it bothers me. Is that a stain? Is that an actual stain? There's an actual stain on my shirt. And now I'm bothered. Is there another green shirt in here? Nope. We're just gonna have to sit here with the stain. Um, Fifth question is: do any of them dislike each other or have rivalries with each other? With each other. English is hard. Um, yes and no. Yes, some of them have rivalries with each other, but they kind of all have to like each other. With them being like in the same body, they have no choice but to fess up to each other and accept that they're one another. They're part of one another's self. Like they're all together in one body. I won't give names because then that'll make each other mad. They'll make them mad. Um, the sixth question is, when were you given a diagnosis? Um, my first diagnosis was like I said, June. It was in I think it was either June or early July, like late June, early July. It was after I got out of school. And I was like, I had already found out about DID, so I kind of self-diagnosed myself before then. But like, I wanted to be clear, like I wanted to clarify it. So I talked to my therapist, and she took me to a psychologist. And my therapist was like, "You don't need to do this. I can just diagnose you myself." But I still wanted therapy. I still wanted therapy, and I wanted to make sure that I was correct. And so my therapist diagnosed me with TID. And then I went to a psychologist in March of 2019 and got diagnosed by a proper psychologist who said that I did have DID, and I was okay with that. Um, how long did seventh question is how long did my diagnosis take? It kind of it depends on what you mean by that because it took a while for me to fess up to wanting a diagnosis. Like I've had DID or not knowingly had DID since I was like 5 or 4. Like when I had those imaginary friends were my alters. I guess you could call them. I don't call them alters. I call them personalities. Um, or identities. But I guess you could say that I've had it since like 4 or 5 years old, but I didn't realize it until like my freshman year of high school, which was like 2 years ago, when my friend was like, "Hey, I've noticed you switch a lot. Like you change acts a lot. Like, do you have like DID?" And he asked me straight up, and I was like, "What is that?" And so he introduced it to me, and I was like, "Hey, maybe I do have this." So that's when I came to my self diagnosis of, yeah, I think I have this, and we decided to talk to a therapist about it. And so we talked to a therapist, and they diagnosed us with it based on our symptoms. And then we went to a psychologist, and they asked us more questions, and we diagnosed us, and we got diagnosed from it, and it was positive, I guess you could say. How many are there is the last question I have. Um, it depends on what you mean by that. Like how many come forth? There are. Let me count. I have this is like my DID book. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 of my alters come forth constantly, like almost almost during every time during the week they come forth. But I have around 28, 29 that uh, like total in my system. But they're around 14 or 15, 14, 13 or 14 that um, actually come forth and use fronting as a way to communicate with the outer world. Um, I think that's my last question. So in the video, congratulations. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you share